The BCN Liberation Triangle. Black Christian nationalism seeks to change society in order to accomplish the liberation of black people and realizes that we as a people are engaged in a struggle for power and for our survival. We utilize the BCN Liberation Triangle as a godly symbol to Kasanyawatu and bring black people together to create oneness and unity amongst our people, to build a nation within a nation, where we control our own institutions that governs our lives. The Liberation Triangle is a symbol of Kodi, where we voluntarily tax ourselves to fund the black nation, and is the financial basis of building a nation. The Liberation Triangle is also a symbol of Kazi, which is communal work and responsibility, where we collectively work together on a common program that's designed to liberate the African diaspora from the oppression, exploitation, and brutality of our colonial oppressors. Through Kasanyawatu, Kodi, and Kazi, we will once again build the kingdom of heaven on earth for our people throughout the African diaspora. As black Christian nationalists all over the world, we pledge to let the power of the Liberation Triangle work its wonders in us, to take the power of the Liberation Triangle to African people across the world. May God and the black nation be our witness that we exist to take black Christian nationalism to black people everywhere.
Kind of short up in here today.
Everybody on an Easter break.
Cold weather.
Yeah. Wherever two or more gather,
That's right.
it is an honor and a privilege to come before you again, especially with the task of providing some analysis of the New Testament.
Yes.
And one time I was thinking about, if I was going to have to do another class with this, because you're actually going through a whole testament, it includes a number of books.
Yeah.
And the more I looked at it, the more I said, hey, this ain't got nothing to do with us. And I can wrap this up today. So I want to try to do that in the time that I have left, but I do want to touch on some of the other books that's in the New Testament. And so that we at least have a basic summary. Of course, we encourage you to read the Bible from one end to the other, because the root and essence of the Bible is black theology, coming out of the Nile Valley.
Well.
And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we begin to wrap up. When we get to the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, we can see clearly that these are basically stories of the life of the black Messiah.
That's right.
And automatically, when we're looking at 3 or possibly 4 different stories, it leads you to at least a conclusion that, wait a minute, what's going on?
Exactly.
Why we gotta have so many versions, of the same thing? But when we tie this to history, we understand very clearly that in the New Testament time, we're out of the hands of the black nation Israel.
Right.
And we're in the hands of a Greco-Roman civilization
My Lord.
that's trying to modify, mold, and shape the teachings of the black Messiah.
Have mercy.
We know by the dating of the books that some 70 to 100 years later, and historically we know after the final military defeat of the rebels, those who were rebelling against Rome, had been defeated, ran out of town, and then the area had been repopulated by other people that the Romans brought in. So we know that these are some major changes that's going on, and this book is no longer in our hands, but it's in other people's hands. When we get down to Paul, it becomes clearer and clearer, because most of the New Testament comes from Paul. And when we look at who Paul was historically, we know that at one time Paul was with us as a Jew. He was a Jew, practicing Jew according to the Bible, and he was against the Christians because the Jews didn't believe that Jesus was the Messiah.
That's right.
But even the Jewish leadership at that time had been corrupted and co-opted by the Romans. They decided who was going to be on the council, who were going to compose the Sanhedrin, and who was going to be with the Pharisees and the Sadducees. And so they already had great influence on that. And by that time, it reminds me of like when we were introduced to the Bible during slavery. White people decided who was going to preach. Okay? And you couldn't preach unless you were certified by them. And then when they certified you to teach this way about religion, then they put you into the pulpit. And so at this time too, you kind of have the feeling that there were some Negro preachers involved, making sure that they did not upset the Roman authorities, who were always looking over their shoulders.
That's right.
The beautiful thing about Acts is that, and you cannot even have a New Testament without being grounded in the Old Testament.
That's right.
Some connection to it, at least being able to refer back to it. So when Acts tells the story about the Pentecostal experience, this was the most poignant part for me, is because we understand that after Jesus had been crucified and the disciples had been dispersed, it was now time to come back together. The Bible records that they said that we thought that he was going to be, we thought Cardinal Sunday was going to be the one. We thought Cardinal Olu would liberate us. These are only steps along the track.
My Lord.
And now they have to look and say, okay, now well, what are we going to do now? Because we're still living in the same conditions that we were in. Now, in fact, it's more oppressive now than it was
that's
then.
right.
So they did come back together and meet in the upper room. Guess what, y'all? We are in the upper room. And so the Bible said that they were speaking in tongues. Now, when we connect this to African history, we know that Africans, truly from the continent, speak what? Multiple languages. Multiple languages. And then having the black nation go through Greek oppression, where now you had to learn how to speak Greek, and then Latin under the oppression of the Romans. These were Africans, black people from various regions connected to the biblical world that may have spoke multiple languages. So we speak it in tongues so that everybody would understand. And so then it talks about how the question basically, again, is what do we do now? And a commitment was made. It said it was like a fire up in the upper room as we congregated and talked about the liberation of our people at that time. And then there was so much going on that it had an influence on the people in the community. Folks going, what's going on up there? You know, they said they must be what? They must be drunk up there. You know, all this busting racket going on up there. But no, they were in the spirit and moved by the spirit and made a commitment to then go out and continue the teachings of the Black Messiah Jesus.
That's right.
And that's where we are to start and where we're going to end up with this session today. A commitment then, if you understand the conditions under which we suffer as a people, and you make a commitment then to do something about it. It was not just about knowing the history and knowing the scriptures and quoting Bible verses. It was about being actively involved. Jesus was saying, if you love me, what? Feed my sheep.
That's right.
Go out and do the things that you have seen me do. Don't be awed by what I've done, because what I do, what? You can do. And what? Even greater things can you do when you are in the power of God. Cosmic energy and creative intelligence, you understand the dynamics that's going on all around us. Jesus even warned the Pharisees and Sadducees. He said, how can you not see the signs of the times? It's all around and y'all playing. Okay, trying to go by Roman decrees and everything, watering down what we were supposed to be about. But see the signs of the time, what's all around us. Let's see who's in the White House. You know what he's about. And so see the signs of the time. And that's what I get out of Acts. And that is the foundation. I hope that we are motivated to continue to move forward. We know that just by the first part of the gospel, that at least something went on that indicated a person of the caliber of the Black Messiah Jesus. The names have been changed throughout time. Through Greek and Roman names have been changed, but we know that historically at that time period, there was a black nation struggling against Greek and Roman oppression. Now when we move on and get into the epistles, which are basically letters, Now, we know Paul was committed to then, as a turncoat, now he's focused specifically on taking the message to the Gentiles. We look at the map and we'll see that again, that everywhere he went from that point on was in Europe.
Yes.
He did not go down into Africa.
No.
Well,
He went up into Europe with his teaching, trying to convince the Gentiles to turn. Now that means that this must be a people, because all through his letters he's talking to various churches that he tried to put together in the Greco-Roman world. And he's trying to teach them about the power of God, about how to interact with one another, how to treat each other as brothers and sisters, and as basic human beings. Collectively, when you put this together, you can see that there's somebody that's trying to teach a group of people how to act, how to behave.
Yes.
And so when we look at it historically, we know that we're dealing with a barbaric, nomadic group of people who had migrated down out of the Ice Age, who were part of Rome, but were other Caucasoid cultures that were basically nomadic, and in their own history they referred to themselves as barbarians.
well,
So here we have a spiritual people that's trying to teach a spiritual lesson to the barbarians in hopes that they would quote unquote civilize them, because they're wreaking havoc in the world.
That's right.
And so that's where that mission was. So I didn't spend a whole lot of time going through these various letters. And at the time Paul was doing this writing, he himself was still being persecuted by the Romans. Although he was teaching within the Roman Empire, those things that he was teaching based on morality, how to act, how to behave, was not sanctioned by the Roman government. They saw it as something that would disrupt the empire that they had together. It was basically a militaristic type of barbarian culture. And now here you talking about, forgive folks and be nice and so they persecuted him, and he eventually cut his head off. But as he was doing his teachings, he was writing to the white folks trying to convince them, look, y'all fighting already again, okay? To stop fighting, forgive so-and-so for so-and-so, bring them back, embrace them, all these type of moral teachings that he's trying to tell in his letters to them. Now, who would have thought that Paul then, who was just writing letters to churches that he was trying to bring, that this would become scripture, holy script, okay? And then when you think about this scripture becoming a part of what was called the Holy Roman Empire, wait a minute. Who are we really talking about? This Hollywood Rome, but it's real Rome. Rome was killer, mad dog killer on the planet.
That's right.
And now all of a sudden they've changed into the Holy Roman Empire. Wait a minute, something is going on right here.
amen.
So we have to be, that's why we say the Bible must have a BCN interpretation.
Well.
You understand what's, because if you just take it literally, you're going to be all messed up.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I want to touch on just a couple of other things, because there's a lot of stuff in the New Testament. In Hebrews, it talks about, I'm trying to see that clock. What's that?
You good? Get better.
Oh, okay. I get going sometimes.
Take your time, brother. Take your time.
Reminds of Jesus came to for the purification of sins, warning that to pay attention and do not drift away from the Gospels. So I'm saying, wait a minute, here again, and you're talking about Hebrew, but what are we saying right here? Now you want us to now focus on the Gospels, which we really had nothing to do with.
That's right.
Or something is going on here. It taught that Jesus brought about the salvation through his suffering and dying on the cross.
That's right.
And he suffers and dies that all might be absorbed of sin. Uh-oh, now it's getting deep. Put your boots on now. So in other words, right here, and referring this to Hebrew, and I'm saying, wait a minute, how y'all doing this?
That's right.
That now you don't have to struggle against the Roman Empire. Now Jesus was turning over tables and saying, get yourself a sword and pick up your cross and follow me. And now they're saying that because of his death, everything has been done. And so all you got to do is what? Have faith in Jesus and everything's going to be all right.
Well.
That's a problem right there. That's my summation of the Hebrews
Have mercy.
here in the New Testament. And then James begins his letter by explaining that you will face trials and tribulations if you teach this teaching. and but you should go on and teach anyway. James advises to be quick to listen, okay, and slow to speak. That makes good sense right there.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Before you
yeah.
start running off your mouth, you don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, yeah.
And know the environment that you might be in, especially during Roman time,
Oh,
because
yeah.
you could be nailed to the cross.
Oh, yeah.
He says, don't get into favoritism. Treat everybody right.
That's right.
Faith and good deeds, he says, go hand in hand. We can use that. Then he says, submit to God. God will come nearer to you. If you submit to God, in other words, if you understand cosmic energy and creative intelligence, then you will reap the benefits of knowing God. And so he goes on to encourage them, not to be, boasting and trying to be rich, get caught up in the money and everything as your God. And he encouraged folks to continue to be patient and to pray. But this patient thing right here does not seem to me to fit the time that they're actually in. Then you go on into Peter's 1 and 2, and through the resurrection of Christ, there is hope. And so now we're talking about Christ being resurrected, but there is some hope. Peter tells the people to have self-control. Okay, it sounds like it's kind of watering things down here. Now this is under Roman control. Now Romans have defeated everybody. And these new writings are coming out, and it says, have self-control. He advised the people to submit. Here's the part I know you're going to be upset with right here. It said Peter advises to people to submit to the authorities and the rulers. And then he gets even deeper still. He said, wives, submit to your husband. Well, we know we have to black world Something is going on here. Something is going on here.
Yeah, we know we ain't.
Then we get down into 1 John, 2 John, and 3 John. And John is saying, the word is the light. It is the light, the word. And this is something that's very important. The knowers of the way, they used to be called, before they called Christians, the people of the way, the people of the book.
Oh, yeah.
Various Christian sects during the same time was talking about the gnosis of knowing the truth or knowing the way. What truth, what gnosis, what body of knowledge are we talking about? Right. Because there is no body of knowledge like this coming from Greece or Rome. It's only coming out of the Nile Valley,
Right. Well,
out of the ancient Egyptian spiritual system. That's the knowers of the truth. That is where you have the Greeks talking about being trained by the mystery system. And that's where they get religion and morality, and all of that is coming out of inner Africa. So if you know the history, you see, right, this connects us back to the past, right there. It's John warns of the deceivers. And throughout Acts also, in the New Testament, there's often conversation about the deceivers, the Antichrist. And Jesus is also said to say that there are those who say that they are Jews, but are not.
Well.
And are from where? The synagogue of Satan. So that lets us know historically there's something going on in the midst of the people who are supposed to be the people of a book. Other folks are filtering in with a foreign analysis and a foreign doctrine. Jude, go on, the book of Jude Jude warns his readers of immoral men slipping secretly among the people of faith. So here we go again with that same idea and concept that helps us understand what's going on. And eventually we go on into Revelation, where John has a vision of 7 churches describe the throne in heaven. John gives a description of 7 seals from the scrolls. Now, there's only one culture that's producing scrolls at this time in history. And those are the scrolls that's coming out of ancient Egypt. Those are the scrolls that they brought together at one point to produce the Septuagint, which is the first Greek Bible. In other words, the only people who were actually writing, who has a history of writing in this time period and before, were the Africans. It was you. You are the ones who created the script of the Old Testament. And then you are the ones, according to the Greeks, who taught the Greeks how to write. And then on, of course, with Latin, you were the teachers of this. So this, if you know the history that goes with it, takes you back to the Bible as well. And it talks about how the fall of Babylon, and basically the idea is that the wicked society will fall. It won't last forever. Though.
Oh, yeah.
Some people thought Rome was going to last forever.
Oh, yeah.
But because of its wickedness, it collapsed in on itself.
Oh, yeah.
And the basic thing is that if you do right, you're going to be blessed. And if you do wrong, then you will reap the benefits of that. And that's my conclusion in terms of what is basically the New Testament. Of course, it's much deeper than that. If you have the time, you go ahead and read through the literature, but understand the period that we're talking about. So this brings me back to our visual presentation. Just a hop, skip, and a jump through what we have basically already concluded. That this thing called the Bible, and I shared with you a handout from the history class on the history of the Bible, and I hope that can add to your understanding of how things began to change from what was considered ancient Egyptian teachings into Greek and Roman hands. But among the Greeks, the Bible is a Greek word. It means little books. And so you have to then put together a compilation of what we call spiritual literature to create that book. So this book is put together in Alexandria, Egypt, or Egypt. Alexander put his name on it when he conquered it. But why not in Greece or why not in Rome? Why did they have to come to Egypt to put together? Because it came out of inner Africa, your own spiritual teachings.
Right.
And so as they began to try to understand the root of what created your cultures that was so great and awesome to the Greeks and the Romans, they asked, and domination, the priests to come together and translate this into Greek. To learn more about this, we shared this with you earlier. These are some of the old slides. I've added some new ones to it. But it's definitely good reading to help you understand this on a linguistic frame of reference as well. Dr. Ben continues to do good, left us a legacy of great work. And if you just read the last, 3 or 4 chapters in Black Christian Nationalism, you'll get this because it's already there. Jeremiah, Dr. Ben, they were friends, they knew each other. And so you cannot have a New Testament without the foundation of the Old Testament that comes out of Black historical perspective. You are the people of the book.
Well,
So we're moving from a Black Moses and a Black Messiah, Jesus. Jesus was not the only one that will be referred to as the Messiah. During that oppression, there were many who claimed to be. There was a messianic expectation among the people that we will raise up children, okay, who will free us from this Roman oppression. That is turned over though, because the Romans defeat the black nation Israel, wipe them out, and disperse them throughout the world. They had to run out of there, those who survived. And so then the story is now being told by Greeks and Romans, and so you get a whitewash of the biblical story.
That's right.
Remembering though that this is anchored in the Nile Valley. You can see this right here. And the Pope that's walking around today, their foundations of spiritual awareness and culture comes out of the Nile Valley. Now that brings us to Paul and his so-called conversion, where he was persecuting Jews. Remember they said, Paul rode up in your house and pulled you out the house, okay? Because you practicing this Christianity in the Jewish community. That lets you know there was a split even among the black Jews and the black Christians at this time. But then he had this conversion, he goes out teaching. But all of his teachings is based on, the map shows you that he went all up into Europe. Yeah. That's where all of it, not one of those are going down into Africa. But the foundation of his teachings come out of the Old Testament as well, that he gets right there in what is Jerusalem. And that's where you laid that foundation for them. Now you're up against a very militaristic Roman Empire. There was persecution and burning of Christians. They show you on TV. Now there's white folks and everything, but when you go back to that time period, it was black folks. They have totally taken over the religion, and the persecutions of the Christians by the Fabians and other Romans and Greeks is well documented in history. You can read it for yourself. The last assault at Masada at 70 AD was the defeat of the rebels, those who were rebelling. All the black people don't rebel. Some are rebels and some are not. But the Romans defeated them thoroughly. The Roman walls put down any other resistance until they just got tired of dealing with the black folks and said, look, we're going to run them all out of here. every one of them Jews out of here, and then we're going to repopulate the land. We're going to put salt in the ground so nothing will grow. You go on to the church fathers, and this is the time period out of which the New Testament is created.
Right.
But one of the things that we realize that even though we can say that many of these church fathers, of course, they were the only ones who had the theological foundation that was grounded in ancient Nile Valley culture, were black people, but they were black people who were struggling, trying to keep things going under Greek and Roman oppression. And many of them ended up just like the apostles, killed by the Roman Empire. As Christianity began to spread and influence even among white folks. So all of the disciples, as we looked at last week, were killed in ways for a rebellion against Roman authority and Roman, quote-unquote, Christianity. Councils were set up from that day all the way up to this. They still having councils about what is going to be in the Bible and what is not. Those ecumenical councils go over a period of about 500 years where they're sitting down, writing you out of the Bible and writing themselves into the Bible.
Well.
And so this is the foundation of your what? New Testament. Okay? A new story. A New Testament under Greek and Roman oppression. A new Jesus, a new Paul, a whole new reality that is now supposed to be imposed upon the whole world. They want the whole world to believe the way that they believe.
My Lord.
And so they produce books and literature, and in those books and those writings, they say that you better not challenge this. A thunderbolt will come down and strike you down. This is the word of God. Okay? And in many instances, it's the word of devilish white people who sit down like anything.
Amen.
Amen. And in many black houses right today, they got a picture of a white Jesus up on their wall, and you better not mess with it. I got in a lot of trouble in my mama house. I said, boy, you got white Jesus. And so then these are the books that would comprise the New Testament. Let's see. I can
Come on now.
get on through this. Okay, so additional reading. You cannot understand what we're talking about just reading the Bible alone. I'm saying read the Bible, okay? But then read other literature that is giving you historical information about the time period that the Bible was produced.
Well.
There's a lot of good works out there.
Well.
And I want to pass on, because we put together a very powerful digital library that has all the stuff that you need in it.
Well.
If you consider it of value. Then I'll work with you so that you can get a copy of it. So you don't have to go to many other places. We've done the research. We've been doing research ever since our inception. So
That's right.
we got the literature that will help you. Let me get through this, and I'm going to try to leave enough time for questions. The first concept of Jesus or Osiris. God coming out of Egypt, and the first Madonna and child image right there. And so we're moving from a transition from African culture. Now, this is all throughout Europe now. This is not black churches. This is European churches. And so tell me while I skip through this, why do white people have these black Madonnas in their churches? That's right. And then they give you a book with a white and child in it. But in Poland, in Czechoslovakia, in Russia, they got these kind of, this is in Rome, depictions of Jesus and the disciples, some of the oldest images. See, now you're in a modern technological age now. You don't have to just go by what's written in the book. You can do some research if you have the mind to, and all of this will become available to you. So we know we were talking about a black Messiah Jesus. Here, they got these images in their churches of a black Jesus. So we have to ask ourselves the question, why would white people put black messiahs in their churches? This is Russia. This is Russia right here. I got a whole bunch of these pictures of these black Jesus in Russia. Wow. Okay, they don't let everybody go see them, but they're there. And so these images are depicted within white culture of what Jesus. And now we come to modern time, and what do you have right here?
The Pope.
Popes, okay, worshiping what?
Black Messiah.
I went next door to our church right next door, where the Catholic church over there, with the bars and chairs. And right behind the white priest's desk was what? A black Madonna. I was shocked. What are y'all doing with the black Madonna? Okay? But the life teachings of
Well.
Jesus are revolutionary. You know, being taught by the elders, okay, sitting down before the elders. We got some black Christian nationalists talking about they don't want to, they ain't got time for no meeting. I don't have time for those meetings. The foundation of Christianity was meeting.
Well.
It was meeting. It was those of the faith coming together under persecution because it was against the law for them to meet. They met in the basement, in the hole, in the dark, in the dungeon and everything. Those were revolutionary times. But they met together to put together a plan of how they were going to deal with the problems of the people. You got to be meeting.
That's right.
I know some of us are so intellectually astute that we know everything, and it says a man should not depend on his own awareness.
Well.
Okay, it's just, believe it or not, there's some people a little deeper than you. So we need to sit down among the elders and share our knowledge and learn, but actively get involved and work with the people. That's what Jesus' life was all about. Now here's a man turning over the den of thieves, as he called it, in the temple where the money changers. This was a revolutionary black Messiah.
That's right.
You know, not a turn the other cheek black Messiah.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so at your baptism, then you have the opportunity to turn over a new way of life.
Well.
Understand it.
Well.
Baptism was about Jesus coming down to the River Jordan in order to do what?
Join the movement.
Join the
To join the movement.
That's right.
John the Baptist was the one who led the way to those who were a part of the movement. These were revolutionaries. So, and the voice heard from heaven was the people said, was God saying that, okay, now you understand, and I am well pleased. And at the point of your baptism, it was not about just going back home. Okay, I'll see y'all at the next meeting. Maybe I won't make the next meeting. I'll see y'all at church on Sunday. No, you done joined the movement now. So now you have to get actively involved in what we call a process. And a process is a course of action. And sometimes we leave out the action part. And so the New Testament for us is black Christian nationalism under a new prophet called Jeramogi Abebe Aju. And the way for us in this day and time to use the teachings of our ancestors in the past as a building block to understand our reality today and how we deal with our current oppression. Well, first of all, there's no way that we can be free in our minds and our hearts if we're holding on to a white Christian, a white unchristian perspective of religion.
That's right.
We have to embrace the original teachings that come out of the Nile Valley. And then we are not coming together just based on faith, but faith, we understand very clearly that faith without good works is quite dead.
That's
this
right.
is a revolutionary movement. We are a nation-building organization, which means that we are actively involved in creating institutions that serve the needs of black people, first and foremost.
That's right.
And then we are trying to maintain those institutions that our forefathers and mothers left behind for us. That's our legacy.
Well.
We cannot leave the nation in worse shape than what we founded it in.
That's right.
We have to maintain from the commitment and legacy of those who have made their transition, and then we have to add on to that
My Lord.
legacy for our children.
My Lord.
I saw my brother's hand in the back, so if you have any questions, I'll entertain as much as we have time.
I just have a question here because from the research I've done and what I've heard from the African history class, Jesus was not the only Messiah that existed at the time, right? There were many Messiahs that existed. And I just wanted to know, why was he the one that was chosen to be put in the books that we have? And at the time, his name was not Jesus. When they told us, it was another name because they didn't have J in the alphabet at the time. So my thing is, why was he the one chosen to be the Messiah that the Bible talks about? When in African tradition, from what I've read, each child is born, they always ask, are you the one?
Yes.
So how was he chosen? What method was used to choose him as the individual to be put in the biblical writings that they had at the time that we are reading about now?
Well, we're trying to be clear on who created those biblical writings. if we understand that, then we understand the answer to that question. That somebody else took the essence that you spoke of in terms of the messianic expectation that was a part of the black nation Israel, that expectation was a real thing in the real world. And they then formed and shaped it into what we will get in the white Christian church. They did it. And so they don't talk about it. Now, let me back up just a little bit, because one of the key figures in terms of the recording of the history, in the assaults on the black nation Israel, and even before the black nation Israel, in the assaults on the Nile Valley, these same white Greeks and Romans went in and destroyed, or tried their best to destroy, all of your literature.
Right.
Anything that they found in scrolls, they burned. Anything that they found on temples, they defaced. They tried to keep the spiritual story that you created away from you. And there are still today, few artifacts that remain, but there is enough that remains for if you are seeking that you understand the true story itself. That's to start with. And the handout that I gave you also will indicate to you kind of like the process by which the Greeks then tried to restore or recover the essence of that history and claim it as their own. So read that handout right there. But by the time we get up until the black nation Israel, the same thing is going on. There were edicts by Roman emperors to seek out any literature, the Jewish literature. Go into the houses of what? The priests. They are the first to be persecuted because what they are teaching is against Roman law. And so whatever they found as scripture among the priests were confiscated. The priests were killed and the scriptures were destroyed. Right. Much of what we are talking about that relates to the Bible is from a Greek version of the Hebrew Bible. Mm-hmm. There are no surviving Hebrew scripts, manuscripts, none to be found anywhere. Somebody, white folk might have a copy in their house somewhere because they steal all of your stuff. But the foundation of the Bible, Old and New Testament, comes from a Greek version that the Greeks control in the writing, that when they've set down the African priests to transcribe their spiritual teachings from Hebrew languages into the Greek language. Wow. Some of that counsel was done orally. Some traditions were still being passed down orally. Some had actual scripts. Not everybody was literate in those days. But among the priest caste, you did have those who were literate and who had the responsibility to transcribe the teachings. Right. When the teachers were actually being taught on an ongoing basis, there was really no reason to put it into a book. It was a part of the culture of the people. Right. It was passed down by the priest caste, priests and priestesses who taught among the people. It was at the time of desolation, when the Greeks were destroying everything and the Romans were destroying everything, the priests would come together and say, hey, we better put some of this down. Yeah. We better put it down on paper. And we put it down on paper, we are actually trying to save it for future generations. And they put it in scrolls and they hid it in hidden places. Yes. And our brother Konada was talking about the Dead Sea Scrolls. And whenever the Romans found up on that, they destroyed it. Right. The Dead Sea Scrolls that were found were then turned over to people who was in control of Israel at the time, which is white Jews. Right. They kept the scrolls that they found in those vessels for over 10 years. They would let nobody see them. Why do you think they did that? Right. Because even though many of them was written in Greek and in the old Aramaic languages, they depicted a truer story of the biblical past than what these white Jews would lace out to the public. Right. So after about 10 years, and people would say, hey, release the stuff. They eventually released it after they had, found what they wanted to release. From that point on, those teachings that we refer to as, quote unquote, the Bible, is white Greek and European versions. Remember, King James what? Version. And so what we're trying to do, that's where the BCN interpretation is, go back to the original sources. So so that we can understand what's going on. How does that relate to the history of our black people at that time, and more specifically, how does it relate to us today?
Well,
And so ultimately, we, as any other people, as a part of a religious spiritual process, create the biblical literature that is needed for the time in which they live.
Well.
And so we feel from our analysis, our historical analysis, what have been passed down by the ancestors and the Grand Master teachers, is that this is the version that we have. It's a Black Christian Nationalist version.
Well.
And we think it's a truer, more scientific and historical understanding of the Bible.
That's
I
right.
hope within all of that I kind of got to the core.
Yeah, you kind of got it, but I just wanted to say, would it be wrong for me to say that because at the time when Jesus and his followers was opposing the Romans, he was one of the most prominent teams at the time, and they knew what their plan was to water him down and put him into a white image, that they used him as the character in the Bible. Would you say that's correct?
I would say, yes, somewhat. The idea here again is that when we do our research, as you indicated to start with, there were many who claimed to be the Messiah.
Right.
There were rebels that Romans were killing every day.
Right.
People, oppression breeds resistance. And so every day people were waking up and like, I'm not going to take this anymore, and I'm going to join, I'm going down to the Jordan, and I'm joining the struggle.
Right.
Okay? Just like when you walk down the aisle right there.
Yeah.
So the Black Messiah is in you. And that's what Jesus said, I am in the Father and the Father is in me.
That's right.
And you can do even greater things than I do.
That's
so
right.
when you come into that awareness, and so Rome, from the time of the Greeks throughout the time of the Romans, they were always toying with this story. And Josephus, who was a Jewish rebel, he was recorded in the Bible as a Jewish rebel. He was an intellectual. And when the Fabians came and sacked Jerusalem, he came before them. They was getting ready to kill him too. And he was like, wait a minute, boss. I got some stuff, I know some things that I can help you out with here.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, you are the Messiah. And the Fabians looked like, okay, we about to use this one right here. He is the one, okay, who is recorded in history through Josephus' writings that is telling the story of the Jews. Now he's working for the Romans.
Right.
Come on now.
Right.
So we can see very clearly that there is an alteration. There is a distortion and misrepresentation on the true teachings as we go through that process. It has to be very clear to us. And so what we do is that we understand the essence of that struggle is a black struggle against white oppression. We relate to that because we're going through white oppression today. So the question comes back to Acts in the hall of Pentecost, where the disciples realized that, hey, he ain't the one.
Right.
Whoever came before them, they were not the one. But, okay, what are we going to do now?
Yeah.
Okay, and then they came together with the understanding that each one of us got to step up.
That's right.
And we'll carry on the struggle.
That's
and
right.
they made that commitment there. But it is this struggle that has basically affected the whole world. And so we understand that the power that we need to do God's will is within us. But you have to get beyond the rhetoric and get actively involved in a process that brings us back to community. Because the only thing that can really save us is a real community.
Right.
Like the shrines of the Black Madonna.
That's right.
Your brothers and sisters got your back. Your brothers and sisters hold you up on every leaning side.
That's
right. Well.
They criticize you, hug and kiss you,
That's
all
right.
right?
That's right.
And let you know what's real. Because out there is no community. It's just neighborhoods. Some of them just hoods.
Right.
People don't even know each other and have no interaction. And then when white folks come in and try to take over, individuals are standing up protesting and demonstrating. Individuals might get together in a demonstration group, but nobody is sitting down, organizing, planning. How are we going to keep the nursery going? How are we going to build a new building? How are we going to build a new kitchen? Those are the things that God has charged us to do. So let us be good about our works. Amen?
Amen.
Amen.